answer it by showing you what we did. This is the Cloud Pathfinder, so BC.gov Cloud team, log in to the developer access to the AWS environments. So you're a developer, you're on one of those ministry teams, you're coming in to build your News Tracker app. This is how you come in. You have a bunch of authentication choices. You have your two-factor auth, and then you're faced with a bunch of environments to choose from. So you get a little bit of extra context injected on top of the very user-friendly giant AWS IDE that you're normally faced with. So at least you kind of know where you're going. Those of you that have worked with that will know why that's useful. And you have your temporary token that you can copy over to your CLI. That one's expired. We'll try it. And then we added some other extra things. We had our internal security compliance and privacy compliance review a lot of the services, and kind of thumbs up the ones that they'd already gotten to, and those that they hadn't gotten to were just kind of left as orange and said haven't reviewed them yet, but make sure you add that to your risk assessment. Some basic dashboards. This is interesting if you look in the upper right corner, you see that the username there basically is generated by, like, everything that is logged has that metadata attached to it, and just by looking at it, you can see what authentication provider they came in by, who they are, and what environment they're acting on. That's very handy for parsing logs. And you see here we don't have any users. No users to manage. We just let the original authentication provider manage it. So when they are offboarded from the organization, their Active Directory disappears. They don't have access anymore. It's all role-based.
Does that work for the GitHub accounts? The IDE projects are all for the dev ones. I assume there's code that's folks. How do those get through?
Yeah, they're added in and out of the organization.
So that's just a manual process. Or is it automated?
I'm not sure now.
They now have a Finder-based GitHub.
Oh,
Yeah.
so they put it with
Yeah. Before it was manual. Yeah. When teams come in, we provide them training that's specific to BC.gov, not the cloud provider. Explain why that's important in a sec. We don't dump them a whole bunch of cloud documentation. Instead, we give them a sample app that is compliant by design. This is a little bit about the training. We're going to really focus over here on the last stage there, that 2-hour session. That's where Warren and his team go in and they fork the GitHub repo that has a sample app, working with the team, the incoming team that's onboarding. They have that team put in their own secrets that correspond to the environments that they've been just provisioned. And then they run the CI/CD for the first time. And they get an actual running compliant app. And then the challenge we give them is either keep that app and iterate on it, build up your own business logic into that, or you can throw it away but just try to exceed it. Try to make your app better than that. And we found that that's a lot easier than dealing with a lot of static documentation, a lot of Word documents, PDFs, because those drift. They drift all the time. And having the repo, we're running that multiple times per month with each team as they're coming in. It's always being updated, and it's kept hot. Technical tips. Uptime and stability is number one. You saw the amount of effort that we took into testing those platform changes and keeping things away from our live platform. Never ever deviate from that. It's tempting, but don't do it. Use source control for your platform configuration changes. So that was kind of where I was driving at. The Terraform scripts, everything, put it into source control. Obviously, you want to experiment. You have your dev platform where you can do that. You can go in the GUI and bang in some changes and so on. But keep your live production environment only that Anything that changes it is coming from pipeline, from source control. And that's how you can that's the pattern that Warren was alluding to locking down that development process. And look for efficiencies on a permanent basis rather than temporary credits. A lot of times when you approach the cloud provider, this isn't about AWS now, this is about any of the cloud providers, they'll just say, oh yeah, well here, just take a bunch of temporary credits. The time always flies by before you know it, and you still haven't gone and made that change. You're back to overspending. So try to front load those changes. When you hear the word guardrails, so we looked at that diagram that had all the guardrails on the environments that we're running. That's running code. So that's a big driver of the expense. The firewall appliances in a deployment like this are very heavy duty. They're highly available, so there's multiple copies of them. You need to keep multiple copies of them on, because if you down tune them to single copy, your high availability doesn't work anymore, right? You've got to keep that code hot as well. And dealing with logs, they pile up fast. You need to figure out some way to data warehouse them cleverly so that you can still query them and get some value out of your logs. And you'll get hit by a lot of consulting companies that claim to be able to come in and just manage your cloud for you. How many people have been on the receiving end or in a room for that kind of pitch where someone has come in and said, hey, we'll take care of we'll run your cloud for you, leave it to us. And then you ask them for details and they have nothing. So, it was very successful, 100% workload uptime, didn't have any security or privacy incidents, and we had a complete understanding of our cloud posture at any time because of that common governance that the platform gave us. Things I didn't cover: how do you grow a community around this and keep the community interested so that you're actually providing them things that are useful. What I mean by that is, a cloud provider will come to you and say, here's all our training. There's 337 courses, and and you have some team that's new to cloud and they're just sitting there going, where do I start, right? Didn't talk about security operations and incident response. Didn't talk about what the front end for automating the platform automation looks like, so that could be another talk. Didn't talk about patterns to maintain portability and try to avoid lock-in into the various cloud platforms. And of course, automation. High value, but high operational costs. Make sure you treat it as a first-class product. And if you're going to do this, you're going to need a business case to build a strong team to support that platform. And Will is going to be providing some thoughts and ideas for building those kind of business cases. We covered today how to productize your platform, why that's important from an operations and governance point of view. Explain the value clearly so that you can go and articulate a request if you think this is something that your organization has the scale to manage. Again, you have to be a certain size, I think, for it to be worth it. And thanks, Billy. AWS, obviously, Ryan Yeager at AWS has been so helpful. Peter Watkins and Todd Wilson, you remember them? You met them, right? Yeah, they worked at BC Gut. They started Dev Exchange, and of course Autimo. Thanks so much that I've come over and joined them. I'll take 2 questions, and then we can talk more after Will. Will's going to talk to us about tools for making business cases and some other interesting things. Questions?
Curious, what was the uptime? I mean, the SLA, is it 5 minutes or 3 minutes? What was the issue?
There wasn't any downtime for. I worded it carefully though.
I said, sorry, but it's 5 lines or 3 lines? What they achieved uptime?
Oh, confidential.
Commercial.
I can't say what was in the agreement. But
Thank you.
But the resulting uptime was 100% for the workloads. We had occasional blips in the login app or things like that, but they were quickly fixed.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question. Hi.
Hi, my name is Edward. I would like to.
Okay, Albert.
My name is Edward. I would like to ask you, do you plan or maybe do you already have an integration with such services like SonarCube or maybe Nexus or something that will help to improve the code quality and solution by itself? Because
Yeah, for sure. Carry on.
yeah, because as you can see, your solution has a huge feature. It already basically has, yeah. But basically, I think, just in my opinion, such integration could help you to kind of increase the spectrum of increase your offer, yeah, and propose some better solution to and allow your final clients, yeah, to prevent different faults that may appear in the future.
Yeah, actually, thank you. Great question. So, Warren is actually working on a similar implementation for Azure and Google, and so he uses those kinds of tools every day in the pipelines that he's building. Warren, do you want to
Yeah, sure.
talk a little bit about
I can give a little bit of context.
the SCAs and the code quality that he...
You know, for what Julian is talking about here, especially with the BC government, one of the things that is important to realize is that we're trying to provide a friction-free generic service that is as secure and compliant as possible, but that where there's no one centrally managing, every day exactly what teams do, all the tools they use. So very much so, sort of the overall vision is to give people these project sets, these slice of a cloud, and let them do their work in it. So use the tools that they want to use. We have tried to identify shared services that it does make sense to use, and the province does that as a whole, not just in cloud, with lots of other development teams on premise. So I think there are a lot of services, similar to that they offer. So it's not necessarily a core, I guess, objective of the cloud team, would be one way to say it. And if we're doing our jobs right as the cloud platform team, people don't even know we exist. That's kind of our goal, I would say, to not exist, to just give them access to AWS, and then as long as they're playing within the rules and the bounds of of those guardrails that Julie was talking about, then everything's good, and they don't even know we exist other than that.
A clarifying question for you. Were you asking your question about the code base that deploys and manages the platform, or were you asking your question about the applications that live inside the platform, the individual applications that each team is making?
More about the code base and control the quality of the codes that will be deployed to the AWS.
So the infrastructure, the platform of the infrastructure itself. Yeah, so that comes from upstream. So that's actually not our product. We deploy that product, and we kind of take that product from the government of Canada and from AWS. So that code base, the Secure Environment Accelerator, or the newer version, the LZA, that lives in GitHub and under the AWS-samples organization. And what Warren was also talking about, which was really interesting, because we ran into this problem all the time when we had confusion between dev test prod at the platform level and dev test prod at the team level, is the apps themselves. So we have a demo startup app that we start each team off so that they have a running app that they can look at, and they control the code of it because it's forked in their own repo. That's a great starting path, because we talk to other governments across Canada and ask them how their versions of these kind of similar missions were going. And they said, oh, great, we've got like 3 organizations using them. Cool. Like, are they actually using it? Well, no, because they don't know where to start. So that's why we started everyone off with this kind of compliant, it's a hello world app with a little database, that's all it is. It's you choose your greeting, bonjour, hello, hola, right? And then it saves the setting to the database. And, but that has all the sample, Zap, Snike, all your kind of code scanning examples done in a way that kind of tries to cover everything, and then the team can, as I said in the presentation, the team can choose their own way of doing it. They can use something else, they can use the Shopify engine or something else if they want, and go build their own app, but it needs to kind of hit the same patterns at least, so that they're not just raw deploying to the cloud. Does that answer your question? Yeah, more or less. Really?
Thanks, Julian. Yeah, that's great. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about managing teams. And let's jump in. So a little bit about me. Last 10 years, last 5 or 6 years, I've been at Autimo, co-founded with Warren here. And before that, I was at Amazon. I was the IT manager at Amazon Canada. Prior to that, I was the infrastructure platform manager at Best Buy, where we went through an agile transformation, implemented a bunch of tools that they're still using today. So, prior to that, I worked in education for a bit, and I was at Salt 6 Games when they were doing Resident Evil Raccoon City for a little bit. So I got a taste of the gaming industry in BC when I first got here 12 years ago. There's a whole bunch of letters after my name as well. So, high-performing teams. How do we identify them? How do we develop and maintain them? And some other suggestions. That's what we're getting into today. So let's dive in. So what does a well-functioning team look like? We got some aspects here that these aren't the only things that you will see that are that demonstrate a high-functioning team or a well-functioning team. But these are some sort of key ones that you really hope to see in most well-functioning teams. So we have effective communication and collaboration with the ability to communicate openly and efficiently. We see people comfortable sharing ideas, feedback, and concerns, both in formal and in informal settings. We see collaboration tools that are being used effectively, and that there's a strong sense of collaborative problem solving. We see clear roles and responsibilities, with each team member understanding their role and their responsibilities within the team, and this clarity prevents overlap. It really encourages individuals to have the authority to take action on something that comes into the team. If you know you're in charge of X, when you see something that comes in that's X-shaped, you jump on it, right? Because it's yours, and that's what you do. We see consistent, high-quality output within deadlines, and this speaks to effective planning, some kind of task management process, QA processes of some kind, and we like to see a balance between speed and the need to maintain high standards. So you don't want to be after tip-top standards if it's going to slow you down. I think they call that gold plating in the project management. We want to see continuous learning and improvement. So we want to see folks staying up to speed with the latest technologies and the best practices. We want to see people who aren't afraid to iterate on their own process. So teams are looking to improve themselves. This helps with personal growth. It helps teams remain competitive and innovative. And finally, we need strong leadership and a supportive culture, where leadership is guiding the team towards its goals, fostering a supportive and inclusive environment, and leaders are providing clear direction, mentorship, and support for professional development. So that's what a great team looks like, or a great environment looks like. The question is how we get it. So there's a chap called Daniel Pink. He's a sociologist. He wrote a book called Drive. I don't know if anyone's familiar with this. Show of hands, anyone read it? There's a couple of you out there. Yeah, it's a great book. I strongly recommend you pick it up. But he basically talks about something called Motivation 3.0. Now it's a couple of years old, so you remember when Web 2.0 was, so he's sort of piggybacking on that a bit. But his idea was that Motivation 1 is sort of primitive survival. Motivation 2 is the old school carrot and stick model that we see in like legacy businesses. And it sort of builds on research by psychologists Harlow and Dacey in the 70s, and then it was further studied at MIT in around 2017. And they basically discovered that rewards can sometimes fail to improve people's engagement with tasks, and even sometimes damage. So you can have exactly the opposite reaction to what you expect. And just to give you an idea, the couple on the left, this team was given a $2,000 bonus the year previous. And this year, instead of getting a Christmas bonus, they got a paper cup. So thank you so much. you can see how that might not have the impact that was intended, right? And the same thing, the remote team got the one in the middle. Well, that's just another example. So these are obvious, right? And we can laugh about them, but there are others that are more subtle, and there are ways where it sort of sneaks in and you get perverse motivation within teams. So Pink was saying that this traditional carrot and stick method is outdated, and it doesn't adequately address the needs of today's workplace. But despite this, motivating people using rewards external to work is often deep-rooted in organizations. There's a lot of orgs that are still using this old method. In contrast, intrinsic motivation, which is when people are self-motivated because they're given the freedom to do the work that they enjoy, is increasingly common in the modern workplace. And I think a lot of us who work in development environments experience this, right? Because this is modern development. This is, you get freedom to go off and have play and do something, and then you come back with the stuff that you created. It's agile, and this is the agile process to a lesser or greater extent. So it's essential that people are allowed to thrive by doing the work they're truly passionate about. And Pink argues that to be passionate and engaged, you need three factors. You need autonomy, mastery, and purpose. I used DALL-E for these images, and I had to leave this one in. I was going to throw it away, but I had to leave it in because it put mushery in, and I don't know where it got mushery from. And there's a dude dancing on the back.
The cat says purr.
So autonomy. I was going to say, let's dive into these in turn. So autonomy is the need to direct your own life and work. So to be fully motivated, you must be able to control what you do, when you do it, and who you do it with. According to Pink, autonomy motivates us to think creatively without needing to conform to strict workplace rules. By rethinking traditional ideas of control, organizations can increase staff autonomy, build trust, improve innovation and creativity. Table stakes for this sort of thing includes flexible office hours, work from home, dress codes, giving teams the opportunity to set their own numerical goals, having them part of the process. Right? Motivation by autonomy will be familiar, as it's often used in software companies. Giving engineers the time to work on their own development projects gives them the freedom to try out new ideas and can deliver benefits to the organization, such as improved processes and innovative new solutions. If your leadership doesn't trust you, however, you'll never get this autonomy. You'll never get the autonomy you need if you don't have buy-in from the people above you. It may sound obvious, but trust has to be earned. As an individual contributor, you can do this by learning to talk a different language. So the key here is to be inquisitive. Learn about the conflicts that are going on at the levels above you, and learn about the language that they use, literally the language, the words that they use. And try and understand the decisions and the trade-offs that are being made by your management. There are some templates that help. As an ex-Amazonian, they use the PRFAQ, or Press Release Frequently Asked Questions document, to frame a business idea. I think it's a great start, and I'd encourage you to find templates on it on the internet. There's plenty of them out there. But I'd encourage that as a first start, just to pull things back to starting with the customer. What is the business value? Why are we doing this? So next up we have mastery. Mastery is the desire to improve. If you're motivated by mastery, you'll likely see your potential as being unlimited, and you constantly seek to improve your skills through learning and practice. Someone who seeks mastery needs to attain it for its own sake, not for any other reason. So people just want to be the best at. There's a balance between sort of time and money on education though, education, training, and mastery. At the one end, you'll have an autodidact who will spend all the time in the world sitting there, cruising the web, learning stuff, always absorbing new information. At the other end, you've probably got a 3-year college course where educators have to rush to cram knowledge into students in the short break between parties. Somewhere in the middle, you have this osmotic learning. Osmotic learning is what happens a lot within the workplace. So someone who knows something on a team someone who doesn't know something on the team will ask around, someone will find someone who does, and the knowledge will just sort of circulate within the team. So some workplaces, they sort of move people around to try and increase the speed at which knowledge moves in an osmotic way. There's other things you can do as well. So osmotic learning works well when there's time for one person to go off and learn new stuff. But with the pace of change that we have in our technology, the pace of change in technology that we have in our community, like, unless there's someone actually going off and doing that little bit of extra learning, then there's no osmosis because there's no new knowledge coming into the group. So, like, there was a sales call we were on a couple of months ago. We were talking to a team, and they had an idea, and they were running it by us. So we think we're going to do this, we use this technology, this and that and the other. And Warren says, I'm guessing the last time you did that was about 3 years ago. I said, yeah, how did you know that? He said, because about 3 years ago, that's exactly the tool you know how to use. So yeah, you have to get out there and you have to get more knowledge in. So mastery at Autimo. So we're not perfect, but we do try and ensure that we have the time to learn new stuff. In fact, our business depends on being up to speed with new stuff because it's what we do. We help folks with new stuff. So the key really is to identify what you want to master. What's your unique selling point? A lot of time when you're learning by osmosis, you learn the stuff that other people know, and it's not necessarily what you should be directing yourself to be learning. If you want to make yourself that person that brings new information into the group, you have to decide what you want to learn. I know it sounds dumb, but actually sitting down and thinking about this makes a lot of sense. If your managers aren't doing this for you, you should be doing it for yourself. So allocate time for training. Now this can be, yes, we can sit in front of the TV in the evening and we can read news. But you can also work training and learning into your day-to-day life at work. So we all have team debrief, or we have debriefs after events that happen. And instead of being a blame game, you can turn this on its head and turn it into an opportunity to teach everyone what went wrong and how we can not have this issue crop up again. You can have debriefs from projects. Whenever we have a consultant coming to work with us, we take some extra time and pay them a little bit extra to sit with all of the team and do a ground bag and show us what they've done and tell us whether they think it was great or how they think it could be improved. And that gives us the opportunity to encourage people internal to pick up new skills, and it gives like a little trigger to that osmotic learning. So we also have an internal Slack channel that we use for posting industry news that encourages discussion. So if you see something interesting, stick it in there, see if we can drum up some discussion internally around it. At AWS, they actually take a couple of weeks off. All the solutions architect, after reInvent, take a couple of weeks off, and they don't talk to any customers. Because I guarantee if you're a solutions architect, you can't go to all the talks at reInvent, right? So you go to some of them, you get back and your customer the next day is, I went to this talk and I want to use this technology. And like, if you haven't seen the talk, then you're kind of stuck, right? So all the SAs take 2 weeks off, they all train each other on all the new tech that's come out there. There's opportunity to bring in an expert. And that's something that, obviously I'm here, I'm going to plug Autimo, right? We can come in and help you do that. But you can also bring experts in from elsewhere. A lot of people have colleagues from former workplaces, and you would be surprised how keen people are to share the knowledge that they have. Right? If you ask someone to come and talk to your group, you'd be surprised how many people will say yes. All you have to do is ask. So purpose. Purpose is an interesting one. People may become disengaged and demotivated at work if they don't understand or can't invest in the bigger picture in their purpose. So folks who believe that they're working towards something larger and more important than themselves are often the most hardworking, productive, and engaged. And encouraging your team to find purpose in their work really does set up a win-win. So this is more sort of pointed at the managers. One way to do this is alignment around company mission, vision, and values, especially the vision and values bit, because that never really is supposed to change. And you kind of shouldn't be working there if you don't agree with it, and you should have agreed with it when you started working there. So in theory, everyone who you're working with are aligned on these things to start with. So on my MBA, when I was studying for my MBA, one of the things that they kept saying to us, that I really of course, was that they kept saying it to us, was that it takes 10 times hearing something before it actually sinks in. So don't feel that you're repeating yourself. When you give someone a task, you're like, hey, can you go do this? Because that will allow us to do Y, which aligns with our core values and our vision and so forth. And you get sick of saying the last bit as a manager, but it's okay. You have to say it a lot for it to get through. And there's nothing more gratifying than hearing someone who you've been saying this to for years explaining in the same way to another junior the same thing. Oh, because it aligns with that. Fantastic thing. So yeah, that's the purpose. I think I think at Autimo, we have a bunch of different values. I haven't pressed them up earlier, but one of the key ones that one of my favorites is the education. We take a collaborative approach to work-based education, and we feel that it delivers quantifiable business value. We do this for on-the-job training, and we also we do this through community, and that's one of the reasons why we're here today. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So, it's a summary. To summarize it all: hire people you can trust, then trust them. Work to build trust within your team. Work education into your systems and process. And learn what your team's individual goals are and find ways to align the corporate mission and vision. That's it. That's my talk. Quick little plug here on the community front. We do a Friday after work beers event, last Friday of every month. It's obviously Thursday this week because it's the long weekend. But we do it down at Fable Diner. You should be able to spot us. We'll either be downstairs or we will be wearing blue shirts. So. We also have a Discord community, and you can find us on there, ask additional questions. I think we'll probably be posting slides up there, maybe, possibly.
Yeah, if anyone wants to come build some more cool stuff around generative AI and that DevOps process, I'll be there. So come chat and we can build some cool stuff.
Cool. Thanks, folks.
Well, thank you very much to iFathom and Autimo for sponsoring today's meetup and also for the great presentations. And Julian, thanks very much for the shout out, which made me remember those Victoria days. It was a really great session over there. So thank you very much for today's really great sessions.
It was a long time ago, but you had a good impact.
Thank you.
If anybody does have any questions, you're welcome to hang about. We'll be here for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, we'll stay back. Request for all of you, as always, please let us know how we can improve these meetups. And if you want to present a session, please talk to us as well. But yeah, please talk to us, stay behind, and most importantly, let us know what we can do better. Thank you very much for making it out, and we'll see you again in April. I don't know what the date is. Don't know yet, okay.
Last week, though.
It'll be in the last week of April somewhere. And yeah, we'll post it on Meetup as soon as possible.
Oh, hang on. This is what you
Oh,
put
yeah.
in. Yeah, so this was the Menti that we asked you to fill in at the beginning. I don't really have anything to say about this. I just thought it'd be an interesting thing to do.
There you go. That was the prompt you guys are now.
Yeah.
Andre?
Yeah.
One word.
A lot of tech debt in different ways there. Legacy, tech debt, tech debt.
Thank you.